I found the actress on the guest list before I found out my husband was the target. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? My name is Claire Bennett, and I have planned 214 weddings without a single bride getting left at the altar. I have coordinated 16 corporate galas, 23 nonprofit fundraisers, and one presidential campaign dinner where the Secret Service yelled at me about flower height. I am very good at what I do. I am meticulous. I am thorough. I read every name on every list 3 times because a misspelled place card is a lawsuit waiting to happen, and a forgotten peanut allergy is a funeral. On the rainy Tuesday when everything changed, I was doing what I always do. I was checking the details. The Children's Hope Foundation Gala was 3 weeks away. It was my largest nonprofit event of the year, a black-tie dinner at the Grand Metropolitan Hotel with 200 guests, a 7-piece jazz band, and a silent auction that had already raised $400,000 in pledges. I had been planning it for 8 months. The foundation's board chair, Helen Marsh, trusted me implicitly. She had hired me 4 years ago, after I turned her daughter's rainy day wedding into an indoor garden party that made the Boston Globe's lifestyle section. Helen knew I delivered. She also knew I noticed everything. At 2:47 p.m., the email arrived. It came through the foundation's general events account, which I monitored as the lead planner. The subject line was innocuous. FW, additional gala guest action required. It was forwarded by the foundation's office manager, Linda, with a note. Claire, Mrs. Whitmore submitted this yesterday. Needs to be added to Table 4 per her request. Please confirm dietary restrictions. I opened the attachment. It was a standard guest edition form. Name, Vivian Sterling. Affiliation, Premier Talent Agency. Role, guest. Seating preference, Table 4, next to Ethan Whitmore. Dietary, pescatarian. +1, none. I stared at the screen. I counted to 40. In my business, you learn to pause before reacting. You learn that the first assumption is usually wrong. Maybe Vivian Sterling was a performer. Maybe she was singing during the cocktail hour. But performers were listed on the entertainment roster, not the guest list. And they did not request specific seating next to attendees. And they did not come from talent agencies billing themselves as guests. I opened the foundation's shared vendor folder. I searched Premier. Nothing. I searched Sterling. Nothing. Then I checked the accounts payable subfolder that Linda updated weekly. There it was. An invoice, scanned and uploaded 3 days ago. Vendor, Premier Talent Agency. Amount, $15,000. Description, entertainment consulting and talent coordination for gala guest experience. Approved by Margaret Whitmore, board member. Status, paid. My mother-in-law had paid a talent agency $15,000 using charity funds to send a woman to sit next to my husband. I did not cry. I did not call Ethan. I opened a new browser tab and typed Premier Talent Agency Boston. Their website was sleek, all black and gold, with a roster of models, actors, and lifestyle companions. I clicked the Corporate and Private tab. There she was. Vivian Sterling, 28. Brown eyes, auburn hair, a resume that listed theater credits, commercial work, and specialized private character engagement. Her rate sheet was available upon request. I requested it. I used my professional email, Claire Bennett Events, and said I needed a sophisticated companion for a wealthy client's birthday dinner. The response came in 11 minutes. A PDF. Vivian's hourly rate was $400. Her extended social engagement package, 4 hours, full conversation coaching, wardrobe consultation, and emotional connection scripting, was $6,000. The intensive relationship transition package was $15,000. The description read, designed for clients seeking to introduce a romantic alternative in a controlled social environment, includes personality matching, interest alignment, and post-event reporting. I read it 3 times. Then I printed it. The printer in my home office hummed. I sat in the darkening room and watched the pages emerge. Outside, The rain turned to sleet. Inside, something cold and crystalline formed in my chest. It was not heartbreak. It was clarity. I met Amanda for drinks at a bar near South Station. She was my college roommate, my maid of honor, and now a divorce attorney with a firm that specialized in high-conflict separations. She wore a red blazer and drank bourbon neat. She listened to me without interrupting. I showed her the invoice, the rate sheet, the guest list. I showed her the email from Linda. Massachusetts is a no-fault state, Amanda said. You don't need to prove adultery to get divorced. But you do need to protect yourself financially. And if Margaret used foundation money for this, that's embezzlement. Potentially wire fraud, since the payment crossed state lines if the agency banks elsewhere. I don't care about the money, I said. You care about the humiliation, Amanda said. She knew me. You want them to feel what you felt when you read that invoice. I want them to feel it in front of everyone they care about impressing. Amanda swirled her bourbon. Then you need evidence. Solid, documented, undeniable evidence. And you need a stage. You're an event planner, Claire. Plan their downfall like you'd plan a wedding. Every detail, every cue, no improvisation. I went home that night and made a list. I am excellent at lists. The next morning, I called Premier Talent Agency again. This time, I used a burner app on my phone and gave the name Sarah Jenkins. I said I was a personal assistant to a wealthy widow in Beacon Hill who wanted to set her son up with a suitable woman at an upcoming charity event. I asked if they had experience with that. The booking agent, a friendly woman named Denise, said, "Oh, absolutely. We just did something similar for a Mrs. Whitmore. Lovely woman. Very specific brief. She wanted the companion to match her son's interests exactly. Sailing, jazz, corporate law. We sent Vivian. She's perfect for it." I recorded the call. Massachusetts requires two-party consent for secret recordings, but I had announced myself as a fellow client asking about services. I was a participant. I was not wiretapping. I was investigating a vendor who had taken money from a charity I represented. That Friday, Ethan came home with new cologne. I smelled it the moment he walked through the door. Tom Ford, Oud Wood. He had never worn it before. He kissed my cheek, a dry peck near my ear, and went to his study. I was arranging centerpiece mock-ups on the dining table, tall white hydrangeas, blush garden roses, trailing amaranthus, the Gala centerpiece. I adjusted a stem while he poured his scotch in the next room. At 9:13, his phone rang. He answered on the second ring. His voice changed immediately, brightening like a boy who had just been given permission to open a gift. "Mom," he said. Then softer. "Yes, I got the email. Emerald green. She'll look beautiful." I did not move. I held the hydrangea stem between my fingers. It was soft, fragile, already beginning to brown at the edges. "You're sure Claire won't notice?" Ethan asked. A pause. "No, she'll be busy with the caterers. She always is. The band, the auction, the timing. She lives for that stuff." Another pause. I could hear Margaret's voice through the phone, a tinny murmur, but not the words. "I know," Ethan said. "I know she's not right for me. She's practical. She's background noise. Vivian actually listens. She asked about the Henderson merger. She knew about maritime liens. Claire still thinks a schooner is a shoe." He laughed. It was a soft, eager sound. "After the gala," he said. "I'll tell her after the gala, when everything's settled. You're right, Mom. You were always right. I should have married someone from our world." I placed the hydrangea in the vase. I stepped back. I looked at the arrangement. It was perfect, symmetrical, balanced, deceptively simple. I took a photograph of it for my portfolio. Then I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and drank it slowly. I did not confront him. I went to the closet where we kept the old nursery monitor from the baby we never had. I plugged the receiver into my office. I placed the transmitter behind the law books on Ethan's study shelf. It was motion activated. It was not illegal to monitor your own home. I checked with Amanda via text. She said, Your home, your device. You're a resident. You're fine. Just don't use it in court. Use it for your own knowledge. Over the next 10 days, I gathered the pieces like flowers for a bridal bouquet. Each one had a place. Each one served a purpose. I found the agency brief in the Foundation's general email inbox. Margaret had forwarded the confirmation from Premier Talent to Linda, asking her to prepare the reimbursement paperwork for the board meeting. Linda had not realized what it was. She had simply filed it. The brief specified Vivian's objectives in clinical detail. Engage Ethan Whitmore in extended conversation regarding his professional achievements and sailing hobby. Establish physical proximity. Encourage emotional intimacy. Report back to client Mrs. Whitmore regarding success metrics. Success metrics. My husband's infidelity had success metrics. I found credit card statements in our shared home office. Ethan had bought Vivian flowers from a florist on Newbury Street. He had made a dinner reservation at Menton for the Monday after the gala. He had purchased a pair of emerald green earrings from a jeweler in the Prudential Center. I recorded 4 more phone calls. In one, Margaret told Ethan, "Vivian's people are from Greenwich. Her father is in hedge funds, not like Claire's father who sold insurance in Cleveland." In another, Ethan said, "Vivian thinks I'm trapped in a marriage of convenience. She wants to rescue me. It's refreshing to be with someone who sees my potential." My potential. As if I had not worked 60-hour weeks to build my business so he could take risks at his father's law firm. As if I had not covered his malpractice insurance when he made partner. As if I had not been the convenient background of his entire life. I met Helen Marsh at her townhouse on Beacon Hill. She served me tea in china cups that had belonged to her grandmother. She was 71, widowed, with the kind of steel-gray hair and direct gaze that made men half her age nervous. "I've known Margaret Whitmore for 20 years, Helen said. She tried to sabotage Ethan's first engagement to a lovely girl from Wellesley. She spread rumors that the girl's father was in debt. The engagement ended. She tried to control his college applications, his law school interviews, his first job. Ethan has never made a decision without her approval. I hoped you were strong enough to withstand her. I see now that you are." "She used foundation money," I said. $15,000. She embezzled from sick children to hire my husband a girlfriend. Helen's face hardened. "Then she is not merely a bad mother-in-law, she is a criminal, and she is no longer welcome on my board." "I need the final toast," I said. "Usually you close. I need 10 minutes. And I need the AV system." Helen set down her cup. "You have it. But Claire, are you certain you want to do this publicly? There will be press. There will be fallout." "She chose the venue," I said. "She chose the guest list. She chose the actress. She just forgot that I own the production." I spent the next week preparing with the precision of a general planning a campaign. I met James Cole at the Grand Metropolitan on a Monday morning. The ballroom was empty, the chandeliers shrouded in cloth, the carpet vacuumed in perfect lines. James was my AV director for 40 previous events. He had a sleeve of tattoos and a brain that understood signal flow better than human emotion. "I need a special presentation," I said, "for the final toast. It begins as a standard foundation tribute, 2 minutes, then it transitions." James looked at the USB drive in my hand. "Transitions to what?" "Evidence," I said. "Emails, invoices, recordings. Nothing obtained illegally. All of it came through foundation channels, public records, or my own household. I need it on every screen. I need the house audio. I need it loud enough that nobody can pretend they didn't hear." He took the drive. "This is personal." "Yes." "Does it hurt the foundation?" "It exposes a board member who stole from the foundation. The foundation will look honest. She will look like a thief." James plugged the drive into his laptop. He previewed the files. He let out a low whistle. "Your mother-in-law is a piece of work." "You have no idea." "I do, actually," he said, not looking up from the screen. "My ex's mom tried to pay off our surrogate to miscarry. Rich people think money buys everything, including other people's pain." He built the presentation. He called it tribute_final_module and password protected the file. He showed me the cue sequence. At 9:15 p.m., I would take the podium. I would give a brief speech. Then I would say, "Let's look at what this foundation truly represents." James would hit the button. The screens would do the rest. I also hired security, not bouncers. Off-duty Boston police officers, contracted through a security firm I used for celebrity weddings. I told the lead officer, Derek, that there might be a disruption during the closing remarks. I asked him to manage the exits and ensure that key individuals remained in the room until the presentation concluded. He asked if I was requesting a detainment. I said, "It's a private event on private property. The foundation is making a formal announcement. You are providing crowd management for the safety of the attendees. Nobody is under arrest unless you see a crime in progress." Derek looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, "My sister went through something like this. Her husband's family tried to have her deported. She fought back. She won. We'll be there." 3 days before the gala, Ethan came home with flowers. White lilies. He remembered I liked lilies, which was half true. I liked calla lilies, not stargazers. But it was the thought that counted, and the thought was guilt. "You've been distant," he said. He leaned against the kitchen island. His tie was loosened. His hair had more product than usual. "Is everything okay with the gala?" "Everything is perfect," I said. I trimmed the stems and arranged them in a crystal vase. "The centerpieces are sublime. The band is rehearsed. The guest list is particularly interesting this year." He poured a scotch. "Mom mentioned she invited an old friend. Someone from her bridge club, I think." "Is that what she told you?" He paused. The glass froze halfway to his lips. "What do you mean?" "I mean," I said, turning to face him, "that Vivian Sterling is a lovely name. Very theatrical. Did you know she studied at Yale Drama? Her resume says she specializes in intimate character work for private audiences. I wonder what character your mother paid her $15,000 to play." The color drained from his face in stages. First his cheeks, then his forehead, then his throat. The scotch trembled in his hand. "Claire, don't," I said. My voice was calm. I had practiced this tone for hours, standing in front of my bathroom mirror, reciting lines until they felt natural. "Don't explain. Don't apologize. Don't tell me it was a mistake, or that you got caught up, or that she manipulated you. You are 36 years old. You are a partner at a law firm. You chose this. You chose her. You chose to let your mother buy your exit from our marriage like I was a lease she wanted to terminate." He set down the glass. It clicked against the marble. "How long have you known?" "Long enough to plan," I said. "The gala is in 3 days. You will be there. Your mother will be there. Vivian will be there, wearing emerald green, sitting at table 4, right where I put her. And you will smile and you will shake hands and you will pretend that everything is fine. Because if you don't, I will send the invoice, the brief, and the recordings to every partner at Whitmore and Associates. I will send them to the state bar. I will send them to your mother's tennis club. I am very good at distribution, Ethan. It's part of my job." He stared at me. For the first time in 6 years, he looked at me not as a convenience, not as a planner, not as background, but as a threat. "You're bluffing," he said. But his voice shook. I smiled. "Try me." He did not sleep in our room that night. I heard him pacing the hallway until 3 in the morning. At 3:15, he went to the guest room. I heard him call Margaret. I heard him whisper, "She knows." I heard Margaret's voice, sharp and certain. "So what? She has no proof. She's an event planner from Ohio. Nobody will believe her over us. We'll deny everything. We'll say she's unstable. We'll say she's jealous. Stick to the plan, Ethan. After the gala, you file for divorce. You take the business. She has nothing." I lay in the dark and listened. I did not feel fear. I felt the deep, steady calm of a woman who has already loaded the gun and is simply waiting for the target to walk into the frame. The gala arrived like a clock I had spent 3 weeks winding. I woke at 5 in the morning. I reviewed the seating chart one final time. Table 4. Ethan Whitmore, Vivian Sterling, two empty chairs that I had deliberately left vacant to ensure their privacy. Table 1. The foundation board, including Margaret Whitmore, the mayor, and 3 district court judges. Table 6. Ethan's law partners. Table 12. 3 journalists from the Boston Globe, the Herald, and a local society blog. They had received anonymous tips that a major transparency announcement would be made at the gala. I had sent those tips from a burner email 3 days ago. I arrived at the Grand Metropolitan at 11. The ballroom was coming alive. The florist was installing the tall arrangements, white hydrangeas, blush roses, trailing amaranthus, exactly the mock-up I had shown Ethan. The band was setting up. The catering team was polishing 500 wine glasses. I walked the perimeter, checking sightlines. I needed every guest to see the screens. I needed the audio to reach every corner. James gave me a thumbs up from the AV booth at the back of the room. He was running sound checks. The screens showed the foundation's logo, soft gold on navy blue. Derek and his team were positioned at the service entrances, dressed in black suits, looking like event staff. At 5, I went to the bridal suite the hotel reserved for event coordinators. I showered. I put on my gown. It was black, Alexander McQueen, high-necked, long-sleeved, with a slit that showed my leg when I walked. I had bought it 6 months ago for this gala. I had planned to wear it on Ethan's arm. Now I wore it as armor. I pinned my hair into a severe chignon. I wore silver earrings, the ones my mother had given me when I started my business. I looked in the mirror. I looked like a woman who had lost everything. I also looked like a woman who had planned for exactly that. At 6, the guests began arriving. I stood in the foyer, greeting them by name, checking coats, directing them to the cocktail lounge. I was the perfect hostess. I smiled at donors. I complimented dresses. I shook hands with judges. Margaret swept in at 6:45. She wore Chanel, pearl gray, with a diamond brooch that had belonged to Ethan's grandmother. Her hair was set in the rigid helmet she had worn for 30 years. She kissed both my cheeks, leaving a faint lipstick mark that I did not wipe away. "Claire, darling," she said. "You look tired. Planning too hard?" "Never," I said. "I have wonderful help, and such an interesting guest list this year." Her smile flickered. "Yes. Vivian Sterling. Such a dear girl. Old family friend. I'm so glad she could make it." "Old family friend," I repeated. "How lovely. I believe she's already here. I had her seated next to Ethan, just as you requested. Table 4. Emerald green. Very specific instructions." Margaret's eyes narrowed. "You're very accommodating." "I am," I said. "It's my job. And I'm excellent at my job." Ethan arrived at 7:15. He wore his tuxedo like a man going to his own funeral. He did not look at me. He went straight to the bar and ordered a double scotch. I watched him from the mezzanine. His hand was steady, but he drank it too fast. At 7:30, Vivian entered. She was beautiful. I will give Margaret that. She was 28 maybe, with auburn hair swept up in a chignon that probably cost $300, and she wore emerald green silk that clung to her body like a second sin. The dress was backless, cut low, shimmering under the chandeliers. She moved through the crowd with the confidence of someone who had been paid to be confident. She found table 4. She touched Ethan's arm. He turned, and his face lit up like a child seeing snow for the first time. I watched from the balcony. I drank sparkling water. I did not feel jealous. I felt the way a surgeon feels when she makes the first incision. Focused, precise. Already 3 steps ahead of the blood. Cocktail hour ended at 8. The guests moved into the ballroom. I had arranged the seating perfectly. The journalists were positioned where they could see both the screens and the reactions. The judges were at table 1, where they could witness Margaret's downfall with judicial clarity. Dinner was served at 8:15. Salmon Wellington, haricots verts, truffle mashed potatoes. I had chosen the menu myself. I had taste tested every option. I did not eat. I walked the room, adjusting a napkin here, refilling a water glass there, checking the timing. I stopped at table 4. Vivian looked up at me. Her eyes were brown, heavily lashed, professionally warm. Is everything satisfactory? I asked. Wonderful, Vivian said. Her voice was honey and smoke. Exactly the voice you would buy for $15,000. Ethan was just telling me about his sailing trip to Martha's Vineyard. I adore the water. Do you? I asked. How fortunate. Ethan adores being adored. Ethan's jaw tightened. Claire, enjoy your dinner, I said. The main event begins at 9. I walked away. I did not look back. I could feel his eyes on me, confused, afraid, beginning to understand that the woman he had dismissed as a mere planner was actually the architect of the entire evening. At 8:45, Helen Marsh took the podium. She gave a lovely speech about the Foundation's work, the children in the oncology ward, the donors who made the new wing possible. She thanked Margaret Whitmore for her dedicated service to the board and her generous spirit. Margaret stood and waved, basking in the applause. She looked like a queen surveying her kingdom. She had no idea she was already in checkmate. At 8:55, Helen introduced me. And now, a few words from the woman who makes this all possible, our extraordinary event planner, Claire Bennett. The applause was polite. I was used to polite applause. I was the help, the background, the woman who made sure the cake arrived on time and the microphones worked. I walked to the podium. James dimmed the lights. A single spotlight hit me. I looked out at the 200 guests in their finery. I saw Ethan at table 4, Vivian's hand resting on his forearm. I saw Margaret at table 1, her chin high, her smile serene. I saw the journalists at table 12, pens ready, eyes sharp. I saw Derek by the door, his hand resting casually on his belt. Good evening, I said. My voice carried through the room, clear and steady, amplified by the microphone I had tested personally that morning. I have planned many events, but tonight is special. Tonight is about truth and trust, and the terrible things people do when they think nobody is watching. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I smiled. Before I continue, I'd like to show a brief tribute, a look at what the Children's Hope Foundation truly stands for. Integrity, compassion, accountability. James, if you would. The screens went dark. The room hushed. Then they lit up with the Foundation's logo, soft gold on navy. Gentle music played. Images of children in hospital beds, smiling despite their IV's donors shaking hands. Helen presenting an oversized check to the hospital director. It was beautiful. It was exactly what they expected. Then the image froze. The screens flickered. A new text appeared, white and stark against the dark background. Email correspondence, Margaret Whitmore to Premier Talent Agency. The room went silent. I did not look at the screens. I looked at the guests. I watched their faces shift from confusion to shock to dawning horror. The first email filled the screen. Margaret's elegant prose, her foundation email address at the top, dated 3 weeks prior. I require a female companion for my son, Ethan Whitmore, at the Children's Hope Foundation Gala on the 14th. She must be educated, attractive, and versed in maritime law and jazz. Budget, $15,000. Discretion essential. Payment via foundation account. A gasp. Then another. Then a low, building rumble of voices. The next image. The invoice. Premier Talent Agency. $15,000. Paid by the Children's Hope Foundation. Marked Entertainment Consulting. Approved by Margaret Whitmore's digital signature. Helen stood up from table 1. My God, she said. Her voice was not loud, but in the silence it carried like a gunshot. Margaret, you used our funds? Margaret's face had gone the color of old ash. Turn it off, she said. Her voice was shrill. Turn it off immediately. This is a lie. This is fabricated. But James had locked the AV booth from the inside. Derek's officers stood by the doors, Impassive. Nobody was leaving. The next screen. The agency's brief to Vivian Sterling. Her professional photograph. Her instructions, line by line. Establish romantic compatibility. Physical proximity mandatory. Objective. Encourage Ethan Whitmore to initiate separation from current wife, Claire Bennett. Success metrics. Physical contact, post-event communication, commitment to separation timeline. Ethan stood up. His chair scraped against the floor, a sharp metallic shriek. Claire, stop this. Stop it now. This is insane. I turned to him. The spotlight followed me. Why, Ethan? You wanted an audience for your new romance. I'm giving you one. A full house, just like you always wanted. The audio came next. I had saved the best for last. Ethan's voice, recorded in our home, filled the ballroom through the house speakers. You were right, Mom. She's incredible. Nothing like Claire. She actually asked about the Henderson case. She knew about maritime liens. The crowd gasped. I saw one of the judges at table 1 shake his head in disgust. The recording continued. After the gala, Ethan's voice said, soft and eager. I'm going to ask Claire for a separation. Vivian thinks I'm worth fighting for. I let the silence hang. I let 200 people absorb the sound of my husband planning to discard me like a used napkin. I let them see Margaret's face, twisted with rage and terror. I let them see Vivian, standing up, her emerald green dress suddenly looking like a costume, which is exactly what it was. Then I spoke. I have planned 214 weddings, I said. And at every single one I watched someone stand up and make a promise. For better or worse. In sickness and in health. Till death do us part. I believed in those words. I believed them when I said them to Ethan 6 years ago in a chapel in Vermont. I believed them when I planned his mother's birthday parties and his firm's dinners and every moment of his life that he was too busy to plan himself. I walked to the edge of the stage. I looked down at Ethan. He was trembling, his face slick with sweat. But Margaret Whitmore did not believe in those words. She believed in control. She believed that because I came from Ohio, because my father sold insurance instead of sitting on boards, because I worked for a living instead of inheriting one, I was disposable. So she took foundation money, money donated for sick children, and she bought my husband a mistress. She bought him an exit strategy. She thought she could purchase my humiliation. I turned to Margaret. She was gripping the table, her knuckles white, her diamond brooch catching the light. Margaret, I said, you wanted Vivian to replace me, but you forgot one thing. I planned this gala. I hired the band. I chose the menu. I control the microphone. And most importantly, I control the guest list. I gestured to the back of the room. The doors opened. 2 men in dark suits entered. I did not need to announce them. The journalists already knew their faces from the courthouse beat. They were investigators from the district attorney's white-collar crime unit. That $15,000, I said, was embezzled from a charitable foundation. Helen Marsh has already filed a formal complaint. The foundation's insurance covers fraud, but it does not cover the board member who committed it. Margaret, you are going to return that money, and then you are going to resign. And then, I suspect, you are going to be explaining yourself to a grand jury. The investigators moved toward table 1. Margaret looked at Ethan. Do something, she hissed. Stop her. She's your wife. Ethan looked at me. For the first time in 6 years, he really looked at me. Claire, he said. Please. I'm sorry. I was stupid. I was weak. Don't do this. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can. I stepped down from the stage. I walked to him. I was close enough to smell his cologne, the new Tom Ford scent he had bought for Vivian. I looked into his eyes. You were not weak, Ethan, I said. You were cruel. And cruelty is a choice. I did not choose this. You did. And she did. I pointed at Margaret, who was now being escorted toward the service entrance by Derek's team, her Chanel suit suddenly looking like a prison uniform. But I choose the ending. I reached into my clutch. I pulled out a thick envelope. Divorce papers. Already filed. I keep the business. I keep the apartment. You keep your mother's diamonds and your guilt. Sign them, or the recordings go to the state bar. I'm sure your partners at Table 6 would love to know how you discuss confidential client cases with actresses paid by embezzled funds. The Henderson merger is not public knowledge, Ethan. You just made it public. He took the envelope. His hands shook so badly he nearly dropped it. I turned back to the microphone. The room was frozen, breathless, watching a woman they had ignored for years finally take up space. To the Children's Hope Foundation, I said, raising my glass. May your future be as transparent as your ledgers should have been. And to every woman in this room who has ever been told she was just the planner, just the wife, just the background, may you never forget that the woman who builds the stage is the only one who knows where the trapdoors are. I drank. The room exploded. Not with scandal, but with applause. Real, thunderous, genuine applause. The journalists were writing furiously. Helen Marsh was crying, but she was also smiling. At table 12, a woman I did not know raised her glass to me and mouthed, "Thank you." I walked off the stage. I did not look at Ethan. I did not look at Vivian, who was gathering her emerald green skirts to flee, her face pale beneath her professional makeup. I walked through the service corridor, past the kitchen where the catering staff were cheering, past James, who gave me a solemn nod from his booth, and out into the Boston night. The air smelled of rain and river and freedom. I stood on the sidewalk. A taxi pulled up, right on schedule. I had called it 3 hours ago, before the toast. I got in. I gave the driver my address. Then I leaned back and closed my eyes. My phone buzzed. Amanda. I just saw the live feed from a reporter friend. Jesus, Claire, you destroyed them. I planned it, I said. That's what I do. I plan. You okay? I looked out the window at the city lights blurring past. I will be, I said. I think I will be. At home, I poured one glass of the scotch Ethan had left on the counter. I sat in the dark kitchen. I did not cry. I had cried enough in the planning phase, in the shower, in the car after finding the invoice. Now was the execution, and execution required a clear head. The doorbell rang at midnight. I did not answer. It was Ethan, coming to beg, to blame his mother, to promise change, to swear he never meant it. I had planned for that too. I had changed the locks last Tuesday, the same day I found the actress on the guest list. The locksmith had asked if it was for a new tenant. I said, "Yes, me." I finished my drink. I went upstairs. I ran a bath, hot enough to turn my skin pink. I sank into the water and looked at my hands, hands that had folded napkins and tied ribbons and built altars for other people's happiness. They were strong hands. They had always been strong. I had just been using them to serve instead of to fight. Tomorrow, I would wake up and plan another wedding. Maybe 2. I would meet with brides who wanted peonies and candlelight and forever. I would give them that. I would give them the beautiful day I had been denied. And I would never again let anyone tell me that, because I made things beautiful, I was not dangerous. Because the truth is this: every woman who has ever been underestimated holds a gala inside her soul. She knows where the microphones are. She knows how to dim the lights. She knows that the final toast belongs to whoever has the courage to take the stage. And tonight, that woman was me.